Coming up on 2.5 Geeks, Intel processors, AMD processors, things that are super cool to over 8 gigahertz. Could that be true? Windows 8, because you need something to run on those processors and a whole lot more.
The bar has been set wicked fast.
It rocked in the benchmarks. We're going to up the ante a little bit.
Processing power, I kind of understand this. Hey, welcome back to 2.5 Geeks. I'm Ayaz Akhtar alongside Dave Altavilla and Marco Chiappetta. How you guys doing?
I am fantastic for a fine Sunday evening. And yourself, sir?
I am great. How about you, Marco?
Ooh.
I'm all right.
You're just all right? Why is that? Why are you so depressed? Because you have to cover IDF?
He's a little worn out.
Actually.
That's personal.
I am still a little jet-lagged, but I'm good.
So let's talk about IDF since I brought it up because, it was on the top of my head. This is something we should talk about. Intel Developers Forum, where they're showing off things like Thunderbolts and Odalinis, all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Marco, could you tell us some highlights about IDF that happened this week?
It's like an Italian pasta dish.
I'll tell you about many highlights. I just got back from 3 days out in San Francisco, where I covered the show. The big story, kind of the gist of the show, a lot of the info revolved around Ultrabooks and Intel's push into that ultra mobile space and their plans there. The Paul Otellini, Intel CEO, his keynote didn't revolve around Ultrabooks, but many of the demos were of mobile processors and mobile products. And Muli Eden's keynote from the second day was about mobility and Ultrabooks. So much of the story was about Lenovo, ASUS, Samsung, LG, Pegatron, tons of these companies releasing these super thin, super light, long battery life machines that are coming soon. The first batch are going to be based on Intel's current Sandy Bridge architecture, but there's going to be a boatload more based on Ivy Bridge, which is the next-gen 22-nanometer mobile architecture.
Wasn't Intel also talking about, I think, like 14 nanometers in a couple of years and all kinds of other future technologies that they want to bring to I think, 2014?
22 nanometers coming very soon. Intel's 22 nanometer process is going to use the 3D Tri-Gate transistor technology. We obviously haven't tested anything for ourselves, but according to information from Intel, 22 nanometers is ramping very well. Power consumption is going to be down across the board in idle and load states. Apparently, the process is tunable for many different applications, whether it be high speed or ultra low power. And then after 22 nanometer, Intel's plans are to move to 14 nanometer. And I believe it was in Paul Otellini's keynote, he actually said they've already begun tooling some plants and building out for the 14 nanometer transition, which is going to happen after 22, obviously.
Any other high points you want to actually highlight for the audience about IDF? Because there was a lot of things going on, including Thunderbolt coming to Windows PCs, I think, next year, and I'm sure motherboards.
So there was four different long and short articles I put up on the site. I'm going to put them in the show notes and recommend everybody check them out. So lots of the cool stuff we saw. First, there were a ton of X79 Express chipset-based motherboards. Those are next-gen high-end products for Intel. Intel's self-contained liquid cooling solution. I got some pics and hands-on with that. During Muli Eden's keynote, he held up a chip and also demoed a system running a Haswell architecture. Running the Haswell architecture. So that's Intel's next-gen mobile product coming out in 2013. And at the demo, there wasn't a lot of details, but it was just to show that it's coming along and it's already working. We also, what else did I show off? In the tech showcase, we had stuff from MSI, Gigabyte, Kingston, ASUS. I have pics of tons of Ultrabooks, and I got to say, the pictures do not do them justice. The ASUS X21 and 31.
Yeah.
The shadow in the picture is wider than the notebook, so it's really kind of an optical illusion. This thing it's like a cleaver. It's so thin. It's awesome. But yeah, definitely check out all of the articles I posted because there's tons of little details hidden in each.
I know some of these Ultrabooks actually have bump outs for things like Ethernet ports because they're so freaking thin, which is not a bad thing at all. Light and fast is a way to go. Let's talk about Intel's old partner.
Wait, hold on one sec. Before you guys switch off, I got to just give you one little piece of info from one of the demos. I wish I caught it on video, but during Muli Eden's keynote, he was talking about kind of the progression of mobile products. And he pulled out, a notebook from '06, a big Dell Inspiron. And as he was making his segue to start talking Ultrabooks, he opens the old Inspiron, and the Ultrabook was actually, it fit in the space between the screen and the keyboard. So he opened up the old notebook and pulled the Ultrabook out. It was really cool.
Nice.
Wow.
All right, sorry to interrupt.
That's completely fine, because that's a really interesting thing. I hadn't heard about that on the all the IDF coverage out there. But like I was saying, let's talk about Intel's old partner, Microsoft. Microsoft used to make all kinds of operating systems for Intel stuff, but over at the Build conference, showing off their Windows 8, which is running on some ARM stuff, and they made sure that Steven Sinofsky did anyway, saying Intel is still a very great partner. What highlights do you have for us from the Build conference, Dave?
Well, I think you sort of touched on the big buzz that we all took away from the Build conference and the unveiling of Windows 8, or essentially what was really the first solid demo that we saw of the OS. And actually, yeah, it's the cross-platform pitch that we're hearing now. That's ringing loud and clear. ARM and x86 will be supported. And so obviously we're going to have multiple platforms to choose from for Windows moving forward. And I think that's a critical move, obviously, for Microsoft, certainly if they want to compete a little bit more handily with the Apple folks. And obviously, that's kind of keeps Apple out on that island that, frankly, they probably enjoy staying on. But yeah, really gives them a much wider market to attack. And for me, the takeaway that I enjoyed most was that they put this thing up, the developer preview of Windows 8 for public download. And so I got my hands on it right away and dropped it onto a Core i5 laptop and started playing around with it, and it just blew me away at how light and snappy it was, and how quickly it booted. I mean, it's just, right now it's an early preview, but I think Microsoft has a lot to grow on with this new OS.
Now, Microsoft has a very interesting approach with Windows 8, and I've seen a lot of people, they're going one way or another in this. There's basically two interfaces on Windows 8. There's the start screen, and then there's the actual old desktop, which is kind of residing underneath. Dave, I'm kind of curious to know what you think, or what's your opinion about this kind of two-faced Windows 8 when it comes to this dual UI thing? Because I know some people are like, what are they doing? Why are they doing two interfaces?
Yeah, make no mistake. My gut feel is that Microsoft is leaving that desktop interface there for folks that want to muck around old style and, get in there, geeks that, really need to have that interface. But Metro is upfront first, the way to control this thing, and they don't make it as convenient, or at least at this point, I should say, the beta preview, developer preview it's not easy to get access to that desktop. It's not like you just hit a button and you're there. You have to click over to get to the classic view, and then once you're there, it likes to even flip back to the Metro view, depending on what you do. It's definitely something you have to kind of make an effort to go run. And so Metro, however, on the other hand, is much more seamless and fluid, switching between programs and apps and doing to get functions you want done. It definitely takes a little bit of a relearning curve. You'll find yourself hitting the Windows key a lot to get back to the Metro's start screen when you're in an application. Quitting an application isn't exactly smooth just yet. I think they've got some work to do on that. But, really there's a fundamental improvement in footprint and resource utilization that I was able to notice. The thing booted. Now, granted, I installed it on an SSD in a notebook. And a Windows 7, a really good, clean Windows 7 installation on an SSD, an Intel 80 gig SSD is what I installed it on, would boot in probably about 15 to 20 seconds. 8 booted in like 6 seconds. And so a huge improvement in boot time and general responsiveness, switching between applications. They also have this notion of suspending apps, suspending programs rather than killing them off. So when you go to the task manager and look at all the running and active programs, you see several programs in suspend mode, which can be reactivated, but they completely reduce their memory footprint and their CPU utilization, but they're very quickly reopened and reaccessed, and so they don't have to load back up. So there's some really nice hooks under the hood that Microsoft is going to build on. I think there's going to be a lot of pushback from the old, geeks that want that classic Windows interface, but I think moving forward as this thing develops more, I think we're going to be more and more impressed by it. I was out of the gate, that's for sure.
A friend of mine actually, he basically described it how Windows 95 always gave you access to DOS if you wanted it still, but Microsoft's kind of pushing you away from that. You don't, just because it's there doesn't mean they want you using it anymore. I wonder if Windows Desktop is kind of going the same way. I think it's
kind of feeling that way. Yeah.
And let's talk about, there was another processor company, AMD, trying to get some press this week. Because, Intel doing all kinds of crazy things, including running Android. That was a whole other thing that Intel did. AMD showing off what I think is an over 8 gigahertz processor. Is that right, Marco?
So actually, before I jump into the coverage of AMD's record-breaking overclock, I want to just build upon a couple of things Dave said and mention a few things I forgot during my quick coverage of IDF there. So one of the cool things that also came out of IDF was that future versions of Android are going to be optimized for x86. And Paul Otellini held up a really slick smartphone running Android, so that looked cool. But to build upon what Dave just said, here is a first-gen ASUS EPC 900. This is one of the ones based on the ultra-low voltage Celeron 900. 2 gigs of RAM in here. And this is Windows 8 up and running on the machine. It's a little quirky. It didn't find all the drivers, and I haven't had too much time to poke around. But it boots really fast, maybe under 10 seconds. And it's actually pretty usable. So I think what Microsoft's doing with Windows 8 to basically optimize it and run across multiple platforms is going to pay off for every market segment. But getting back to, so the AMD story, I'm glad I can finally disclose some details. A couple of weeks ago, I spent a day and a half at AMD headquarters in Austin, where they were giving me some hands-on time and showing their upcoming desktop Zambezi processors, which are based on the Bulldozer architecture. And one of the demos was an overclocking experiment. So the goal with these overclocking tests, when you're talking with a manufacturer like Intel or AMD, is to show not only that their processor can scale to higher frequencies, but that it doesn't suffer from a cold bug. So when it's running at extreme temperatures, it actually functions properly. And while there, first they started overclocking with liquid nitrogen and hit some really high overclocks with the Bulldozer chip. Then they whipped out the big guns and used liquid helium, which I believe boils at something like negative 220 degrees, something insanely low.
It's no joke.
The guys on Team AMD hit 8.49 gigahertz on an unreleased Bulldozer processor. And, this wasn't a fluke. I personally watched maybe 5 or 6 samples all break the 8.2 to 8.3 gigahertz mark. And as they continue to tweak and poke and prod and turn the dials, they broke the record while a bunch of press was there. And surprisingly, while out at IDF, AMD kind of had a little side gig going on in a hotel where the folks from the Guinness Book presented them with the certificate that is the world's highest frequency for a modern processor.
I wanted to ask you about that. Since you said I think I read it was August 31st is when they actually broke the record. And then they conveniently have a ceremony during IDF. Is there any reason why there was this gap between, I think it was actually around the 13th or 14th of this week, or last week, and the 31st of August, why this huge gap was left before mentioning they had this 8.4 plus gigahertz processor?
Good question.
Ideas?
It's exactly what you're thinking. They knew Intel was going to be making lots of news. It's IDF week, lots of Intel chatter for those 3 days during IDF. So AMD said, well, let's announce it and lift the embargo right before IDF starts. All right, and that's why it happened.
That's a real Class A move, AMD. Here's good on you for that one, because it did get you noticed.
I should say that's my opinion. Nobody AMD said that, but hey, it is what it is. It
is what it is, and let's talk about something that has nothing to do with this at all. I don't think you can overclock a hard drive, can you? Or an SSD? Is that even possible? Sounds crazy. But let's talk about something that's crazy anyway. OCZ Z Drive R4. You have a sneak peek. This is a PCIe SSD, and now tell me the speed again. I think I saw 2.8 gigabytes per second.
Yes.
Is that right? Gigabytes.
Yes. 2.8 gigs per second. 2.8 gigabytes per second of bandwidth. Read-write bandwidth. That's max throughput. And here it is right here. It's in-house now. Finally, it's big. It's actually a full-length PCI Express card, full height. And it's a by-8 connection on the bottom here. You see that? And if you look on top, each of these chips, there's 32, okay? Right here in this population, you've got an 8x4 grid. On the flip side of the top PCB, there's two PCBs here sandwiched together. You've got another 32 on the flip side. And then the bottom board, the mother board, if you will, that the mezzanine card stacks on top of, that's got another 64 chips as well. So there's 128 flash chips on here, 8 SandForce 2200 series controllers, and so it is a 1.6 terabyte PCI Express SSD, if you can believe that.
Wait, 1.6 terabytes? Like,
yeah, 1.6 TB.
So that must have a price tag that is, if you got to ask, you can't afford it. What does it cost?
I don't have MSRP yet. This is a very early product. We're just now getting a look at it in the lab. It also has OCZ's proprietary controller right here. This is their VCA. What is it called? I forget now. Marco, help me out.
I think that VCA 2.0, right?
Yeah, VCA 2.0 is the technology, but it's their storage accelerator. It's basically it's more than a RAID. It's a load balancer chip, the whole 9 yards for all of the SandForce controls. The master provisioning and load balancing chip. It does RAID as well, but it's more than that. It's a storage processor, and so yeah. I don't have MSRP on it yet. We're just starting to run some tests on it in the lab. It is absolutely an enterprise product, but the nice thing is, this kind of technology trickles down eventually to the mainstream, to the end user space, and folks will probably be enjoying this type of technology and future products from OCZ, as well as obviously folks in the data center that really need that bandwidth and uptime that SSDs, PCI Express SSDs offer.
I will guess a price. It will probably be several vital organs in cost. That's going to be way too expensive. But if
a few $1,000, yeah,
a few, sure. Let's talk about something that'll cost you guys nothing, you viewers and readers of Hot Hardware. If you wanted to, I don't know, get something for nothing, that, you know what, Hot Hardware is a good place for that. I know you guys have a contest, the Labor Day giveaway still going on. Marco, tell them what they could win.
I will tell them what they can win. Yep, it's our Labor Day gaming system giveaway. It's running for about another week and a half. At the end of the month, we are going to pick the winner. So I am building a Intel Core i5 based PC with NVIDIA GeForce GTX 560s and SLI, some Patriot memory, a killer Patriot SSD, an awesome NZXT case and cooler and power supply, very cool Gigabyte motherboard, a monstrous 3 terabyte hard drive from Seagate going to be in there. Fully decked out machine, going to be mint, I promise. And all you have to do to win is come by the site, like a few Facebook pages, register in our forum and news, do some commenting, get yourself noticed, and that is it. Quick and easy. You may even make some friends in the process and walk away with a killer gaming rig.
Now, these aren't random Facebook pages. It's probably facebook.com/hothardware, because Hot Hardware is all around, all over the web, including facebook.com/hothardware, dig.com/hothardware, maybe even twitter.com/hothardware, youtube.com/hothardwarevids, or HotHardwareVids, if I could say it right. Somebody has to give you guys youtube.com/hothardware. You should make it happen. Whoever you are, come talk to Dave.
We could make it happen. I have one more thing to add, though.
What's that?
I wanna save face with the poor people at OCZ. That chip right there, that's the super scale storage processor.
Okay.
How you like that?
The super scale storage processor.
Super scale, baby.
Got it. Absolutely got it. Also, by the way, don't forget, even though you went around the web, you can see all of this stuff at HotHardware.com. Go to HotHardware.com. It's all right there. It's fantastic,
Yeah.
including contest details and more, obviously, because just look around. If you're watching the video on the site, look around. There's a whole lot of things going on. There's like features on the sides. You can vote things up and down. You can look at featured products. They even do deals. They curate deals for you at HotHardware.com. They're not even telling me to say this stuff. I just know the site that well at this point. So thanks for watching. Thanks for stopping by.
Quit lying.
Quick test for everybody to talk so I can see if the audio sounds good. I'm saying stuff. How about you, Dave?
I'm saying stuff, and it's different than the stuff you've said.
How about you, Marco?
I'm saying many different things very quickly with different tones.